There are challenges that prevent growth that are internal, like not having the right people or the right structures or a positive culture of accountability and 100 other things that can harm sales. These internal challenges are common in good times as well as more difficult times. But the larger forces that make selling much more difficult now are external challenges and trends that create more difficult problems. We call the first three trends the triad. The three trends are globalization, commoditization, and disintermediation. The world has been being globalized for centuries, starting as early as the beginning of the Silk Road. But as our ability to travel and ship things improved, the pace of change accelerated. Money and investments flowed east and south, places where labor was cheaper, reducing the cost of much of what we buy, but also increasing the difficulty in manufacturing things in the West, putting downward pressures on margins. As more countries and companies started to create goods and services, most markets struggled to find meaningful ways to differentiate their offering. Commoditization also began shifting power to customers and clients, increasing the competition while also compressing margins, putting greater pressure on sales organizations and profits. For some time, the closest analogy we had to disintermediation might have been vertical integration, with companies cutting out suppliers and developing the competencies to build what they needed internally. With the advent of the internet, companies raced to provide goods and services, and e-commerce exploded on the scene with great fanfare. Companies like Amazon disrupted retailers, marking the beginning of the retail apocalypse. Uber and Lyft harmed the taxi industry, something that in the end may mean its total demise. All of these plays remove the middleman between the buyer and the seller, and they put downward pressure on margins. There are other external pressures that make selling more difficult now too. The last three recessions were not caused by the normal boom and bust cycle that has always explained market expansion and contraction. The 2001 recession was largely the result of the dot-com bubble bursting under the pressure of increasing valuations from companies with new models and no profit. The 2008-2009 Great Recession began with the collapse of Lehman Brothers, and it was caused by new investment vehicles, derivatives, created to consolidate risky home loans, many of which were either larger than they should have been or underwritten without the required income and credit. These loans were called ninja loans: no income, no job, no assets. The housing market crashed, taking the financial system with it. A self-imposed problem for us. And now we're in the middle of the COVID-19 outbreak, which started in Wuhan, China, and ended up being a global pandemic. As governments responded to the outbreak, non-essential businesses were required to discontinue their services. Closing these businesses resulted in 40 million people in the United States filing for unemployment, and a second quarter that fell by 32.9%, the largest decline in the history of the United States, including the Great Depression. These disruptions are not ordinary, each one destroying businesses and causing people to think differently about their businesses, and it changes how we sell. The reason it's had such an impact on how we sell is because these events shape how people buy. So right now, we still are experiencing the rise of the CFO. There's little doubt that for some time, you've experienced an increase in interactions with professional buyers, purchasing agents, vendor management systems, and all the tools that allow buyers to exert pressure on sellers and their companies. For around 50 years, buyers have been trained to use strategies to force the sales organizations and their salespeople to concede on price, reducing the investment they require. While these companies were working on improving their ability to control and contain costs, sales organizations have mostly given up training their teams to negotiate effectively. Buyers' expectations have changed as a result of these external factors. The external factors harm your company, and they make selling more difficult as buyers struggle to determine what they need to do to move their business forward. Their increasing expectations extend beyond wanting more for less to the value they expect salespeople and sales organizations to create for them, even to be relevant. They also expect their partners to accept more accountability for their results, including shifting risk to their suppliers. And if that wasn't enough, now buyers need consensus. One of the most significant changes in the ways that buyers buy now is their strong desire for consensus among their team. The challenges here are many, including helping the client recognize this need, identifying the stakeholders, and helping negotiate whatever might prevent consensus. Some companies make things more difficult by mistaking a unanimous decision for consensus when that's not true. All of these things make selling more difficult unless you understand how you need to sell. How you sell is more important than what you sell. Let me show you what you need to sell effectively and why. Let's take a look at the content that leads to greater sales.